was, and I thought I'd mention this, this would be a good time to do it. Why do you use 20 here? Let's just show it. 2500 grit sandpaper. Well, why don't you use, for instance, 1000 grit paper, or whatever. And believe me, we have a lot of sandpaper here. What I've done over the years is I've experimented with, now back in the old days, boy, the old days, we're a long ways away. In the 80s, the way you would take a model plane and make it shiny is you'd put basically lacquer, butyrate dope is lacquer. You butyrate dope, put 10 coats on, get plenty of it on, and then what you would do is take, and I remember Harold Price teaching me this in the 60s, and he was one of the best. You take 400 grit sandpaper. Imagine you'd never use 400 on this. And you'd sand it out, and then you'd go get red rubbing compound and an electric drill with a pad, and or you'd do it by hand, and it would eventually shine a little bit. It would come up. Well, yeah, what's happened though is in the modern world, using these paints, and the other question I wanted to make sure everybody understood, because I get questions every day from people that look at the video and they know, well, they want to add to this. Now, a lot of my friends, it's hard to say how many, but probably there's at least 10 people in my circle of friends from modeling and motorcycles and model railroad that are real craftsmen that watch a video and they want to pick out the fine points, and I happen to be one of them. I look at every video on YouTube about buffing and finishing and ammo New York City and I think, well, okay, I could learn from every one of these people. That's the whole point. But what I've done when I transitioned from the world of lacquer into modern paint, certain things change. Now, in a two-part, when you're doing a two-part, usually, in this case, it's black. That black never really is shiny. No matter what you do, it's even if you buff it out, you got to put the clear on. Now, what I do, and this part has now Bulldog, it's got 3 coats of black on it. It's got 6 coats of clear, maybe 5 or 6. I don't know. We're going to sand a lot of it off. But I don't go by the normal way people would paint a car. First off, you'd use less paint. But on a part like this, there's edges and corners and all kinds of stuff. And I don't want to be at the final point where I am today, where I'm going to buff this out and go through a corner. So by having all that extra paint, the paint relative to the job is a small fraction of what's involved in doing it. So I'm just really willing to put more paint on. But I sand a lot of it off. So look at this part up close. I don't know, you can see this was sprayed, and what happens, because I don't have a spray booth. Now, sure, if I had a spray booth, there'd be less dust in here. Yeah, definitely. But you know what? You'd never get the finish that I get sprayed. You gotta buff it. There's just no way. Believe me. If you had Chip Foose's spray booth, you are not going to get that finish perfect like it is when you buff it. And the buffing, the way I found to do it with this material, and this is 2-part urethane, the black is 1 and the clear, and it's so easy to do this. I've had probably 20 people in the shop already, Larry and Glenn and Vince and people that can pick this up so quickly, and that's why we make all these videos. Because the other side of this is, here's a good test. You go to somebody who's a professional, has a body shop, pays rent, pays an electric bill, and ask them how much it is to paint a bike. But first of all, half of them won't do it because it's a lot of labor. That's the whole reason. So anyway, we're in a unique situation. The other thing I have over 50 years of working with paint, so I have a good background that a lot of people don't have. Maybe not that many people at all. So anyway, as I've transitioned into this material, I found it so easy to use that I was more than happy to make these videos, and I hope people enjoyed them, of course. So I just want to do this in pieces. I'm going to take any spot, no matter. And again, here's what people want to do. This takes a little more time to sand with 2500. It takes probably twice the amount of time as if you sand with 1200, 1500. But 1200 and 1500 leave sanding scratches. Every time the grit gets more gritty, it takes the paint off. It takes less time to sand. But the problem is you got to if you're going to buff it, you've got to buff out the scratches. Now, and you better have a lot of paint on there when you go to buff it. I mean, Vlad's Momoda, that belly pan has, I don't even know how much paint. Well, I just kept painting it until the cows came home. But the problem is, and this is what slips by a lot of people. They look at the videos I've made since '87, and they say, "Boy, Windy doesn't have a shop. He doesn't have fancy things and no tools, and he doesn't have a spray booth, and he doesn't have $100 spray gun." But in the end, I got the paint that wins the show. So I don't know. I'm not so sure. That's my ego speaking that, but we have won a lot of awards, and that's the end of that. We don't need to go into that. The day after you win them, nobody cares. Even the bike I did for Ray, that's won awards. In fact, Ray's never lost an award either, I don't think. All beside the point. The point is, you can pass this information on to people in a very timely, thanks to YouTube, you can do this, and it's very easy, I think, anyway. I want to show this. This is the amount of time it takes when you do it this way. And I'm not saying this is the only way or the best way, or this is the way I've developed to do my painting. And we paint probably 8-10 bikes a year here. We do most of it in the winter. We do almost none of it in the summer. Of course, we're out riding, of course. But here's the end of this little drill with 2,500 paper. Yes, this does take time. And yes, it's nice and shiny, and probably a lot of people would love to have that finish, but yeah. But we want it to be this finish. Now see, it has a little bit of a gloss. That's called candling. A little gloss, but that's really what that's all about. Now, about an hour has gone by. I guess about an hour. And we've got to this point that everything is flat. We've got rid of any of the dust, any of the little things that fly into the paint, whatever. Now, at this point, we're ready to buff. Now, they make several products. They make this is just one. 80-20. What this is to remove scratches. And I never want to confuse it with 80-21. Now, these are really expensive products. You can spend a lot of money on this. But boy, the result just comes out, first of all, it comes out very nice, and it comes out very quick. Now, I've got my old $15 buffer. Don't need a $1,000 buffer. I've put a little bit of this material along the edge here. I don't need a lot of it. A little bit less is better than way too much. And I just want to do a test spot. Now, always trying to share information here. The test that I use to see if paint is ready, and it'll be on a warm day, 75-degree day. I have painted stuff, and within a few hours, it's ready to buff. The test is I put my fingerprint on it. If it leaves a fingerprint, I wait. In cold weather, it takes, this is like 24 hours now, but if I was skeptical, if I left my fingerprint in there, what I would do is just wait another day. It seems like with lacquer, the longer you wait, the better it is. With this material, there's a less of a window. It's less critical to the window. But anyway, another one of my burned out $15 buffers. I want to keep moving the buffer even though it's orbital. Now, what I do is at this point in time, I make what I call a map. How much of this part can I buff with the buffer, big flat areas? How many parts do I have to really be careful of that what's going to possibly happen? I don't know if it is. I don't want to burn a paint edge, for instance. So I do my little test, which I'm doing right now. Just keep the buffer moving, let it do its thing. And, like, if you have a more expensive buffer, yeah, that's great. But these, they last me quite a while. I think the average person that's not a professional, you're not Chip Foose, you're never going to wear one of these out anyway. I wear one out about every, 6 months or so. Because we're doing this almost every day. Now, this is not the final test here. This is just to give me some indication of where this is going. I want to see, let me get a microfiber. Just get the old microfiber out, take a little look at it. Let me try to get it on camera if I can. Now that's, when this is nice and flat, it guarantees you're going to have that very quickly. Now, what I was talking about a map is there's certain things. Now just do this in your mind. If you hold a buffer right here, you're going to burn the paint out on that edge because you've concentrated all that effort there. So I'm going to be real delicate on the edge. Up here, big flat spot, I can do that. It's no problem. The edges, I'll probably do by hand. There's a little spot, a reverse curve here. Well, just think, how would you get the buffer in there? Yeah, you could make a little tool for a Dremel tool or whatever. Or you could also do this, and I wanted to show this because we buffed model planes out for years, for a lot of years. I can't even remember how many years. That's how old I am. But the idea was you'd buff the whole plane by hand because you didn't want to catch an edge. Before there were orbital buffers, that was a real issue. And if you caught the edge of something, you'd destroy it. And the plane is much more delicate than this motorcycle is. And even in the worst of all worlds, if I took this part and I destroyed it somehow, I melted it or, I don't know, dropped it, broke it, painted it, didn't like the paint, I could just go get another one probably. This is probably an under $20 part, who knows. Every time I say that, the part is 90 bucks. But anyway, that's why I basically like to deal in most of the stuff that very inexpensive if I screw it up. Now in the case of Vlad's bike, we've done everything in the world to make sure we reinforce those parts, make them more durable. Let me just show this quick. You know, if you don't have a buffer, you can do the whole bike by hand. The problem is it's going to take time. What you buy with a buffer is you just the time. Let me show that up close here. I think you can see that, I'm not sure. But anyway, I wanted to show that. Now, probably an hour, 2 hours from now, this whole part will be buffed, and then we'll come back to it. By the way, one of the things I thought would be worth mentioning too, you might have noticed, maybe, I don't know, that what I do is I always wear soft pants. I have these, and I get these in Walmart or somewhere when they're on sale. I always buy about 10 pairs at a time because they take a beating. They're soft. The reason is, and I have done this in the past, I never wear jewelry. I have a whole drawer full of rings and watches and Ferrari watches and everything. But when you're doing this kind of work, it's a good idea to have no jewelry, period. Also, these pants, when this compound gets on there, it really never comes off. So you can wash them. We do a separate wash all the time. Karen always complains. I don't blame her. But I always like to wear soft. No belt buckles, no jewelry. You don't know how many times I've seen somebody who's doing this kind of work, and usually it would be with a model plane, and they got this big cowboy belt buckle, or I made those nice R1 belt buckles at one point in time. I think that's still on a video. But I made the buckles and I said, you know, problem with this, I'll never be able to wear it. He's like, you can't wear them when you ride. When I go out to dinner, but who cares? When you go out to dinner, it doesn't really matter. So I hope from this whole thing we've gotten a couple of tips you can use. Now, I thought I'd just finish this video up with one little thing. Maybe some of the people that haven't been following Windy Videos since 1987. So that's a long ways. Must mean I'm an old geezer. Anyway, I wanted to share something that I think a lot of people might not realize. that maybe most of the people in the world of motorcycling and some of the people in model planes, why I'm so passionate about having nice paint on everything. Well, the story is, and it's a true story, kind of putsy to tell you the truth, but it's true. And what I'm doing, I'm trying to pick all the spots up that need to be done by hand. When I was a kid, of course, we were super, super, super poor. I mean, we were, I don't know how to describe it, but we were meat not every night poor. But I got interested in model airplanes when I was very young, probably 7, 8 years old, 10 years old maybe. And I noticed some of the people that were around at the time had these shiny, beautifully buffed out planes. Of course I didn't. And I really wanted to have it, and really wanted to have them, as you can imagine. And what happened is, I finally found some people that helped me. Harold Price, number one, the late Harold Price, John DeTavio, the late John DeTavio, and people that were more than willing to share what they knew. And I thought, wow, you know, if I ever do learn this, which is, I may not have learned it all yet, or I may not have learned in the eye of the beholder anyway. I said, if I ever figure this all out, I'm going to pass it on to a lot of people. Back then, nobody even knew there'd be YouTube or video cameras or anything. And so in '87, when I started, it was kind of unusual. Everybody said, oh, that'll never work. Nobody's got a video camera. Nobody had a player. Well, we went on over the years to sell quite a few videos. And to be honest, I know a lot of them are still around. And a lot of them are already out on YouTube, thanks to Paul Taylor and his efforts. And I just wanted to make sure people understood the reason I'm passionate about passing this information on. It's not like the reason for doing it is some kind of ego trip. We've had that ego trip years and years ago. But I really think the best payback you can ever have, if somebody teaches you something, is to teach that to somebody else. Now you look at this part from 2 or 3 videos ago, and it looked like rough sandpaper. Now look at it now. I'm pretty happy the way this came out. And don't forget, this Saturday is our big overhauling at Wendy's shop.